The following contains descriptions of the abuse and death of animals. Please proceed with caution. I grew up in a neighborhood that didn't have many kids. There were only teenagers across the street who would humor me sometimes and the two sisters next door. At a glance, their house looked normal enough. A playhouse, a swing set, and an inflatable pool during the summer. The older of the two girls, we'll call her Jill, was my age, while her sister was 2 years younger than us. We'll refer to her as Mary. You could tell when they were playing outside that maybe they weren't the best kids to hang around with, but when you're the only options for friends, you kinda have to make do. And I were pretty close, but she would get angry for no apparent reason and end up shouting at me. I'd never really had any other friends though, so I just assumed it was normal. A few times she would push me into a spiked part of her chain link fence, and I would wind up with bruises all down my back. But that was far from the worst of any of my problems. I had her anger issues, yes, but it was Mary who really concerned both me and my parents. More than once I'd find things in her house that belonged to me, that had been locked in my shed or worse, in my house, even taken out of my own bedroom. Lucky for me, my mom was really careful about this kind of stuff, and always wrote our last name on things so you would only find it if you were looking. So I managed to get most of it back. And I was about 9 when my mom was cleaning the tank. We kept my hermit crabs in, so I had them outside in a small traveling tank. Seeing me outside, Jill and Mary asked me if I wanted to come play. I'll admit I was kind of show-off back then, and felt like this was a perfect opportunity to boast about my neat pets. I had plans to go to lunch with their grandmother, so Mary and I were left alone. She'd always given me bad vibes. As a kid, you tend not to pay very much attention to that. That was when my mom called me over to the fence and said that she had to run into work for about an hour and I had to go with her. Mary offered to look after my hermit crabs while I was gone, and being the stupid kid I was, I agreed. When I got back, there was only one crab in the tank. The other, Mary claimed, had run away. If you don't know, hermit crabs aren't exactly the fastest pet out there. It wasn't until about 2 years later that we were playing hide and seek, and I found a mutilated corpse of a hermit crab in their garage, lying next to the shell which clearly had belonged to mine, along with the remains of the latest cat they had buried. As the years went on, things only got worse. My cats were both allowed outside, and one day we found with a belt around their neck. I wanted to pretend it wasn't Mary, but there was only so many glittery purple belts in the town. Toads around, and when you're a kid in the 90s, finding one is the highlight of your week, especially for Mary, an avid Britney Spears fan. She was known to her standing on her front porch and singing along to Toxic for hours on end. Once we had a toad in my mom's garden. We had some tent stakes left outside, and Mary decided to help herself to one. What I saw still haunts my memory. Out when I was in high school, and a new family lives in their house. They're nice, a couple with 2 foster kids. The little boy just turned 5, and we sometimes pay him to come over and leave some food on the porch for the cats when we go away for the weekend. When they first moved in, my mom was quick to try and make new friends. I've always had pretty bad anxiety issues, so I wasn't very pleased when she made me too. I happened to mention the last people who lived in the house and noticed that my mom seemed to get a little uncomfortable at this. When we went back inside, Mom sat me down. She said that since I was older, 16 at the time, and it didn't seem like it would be a problem anymore, she had something to tell me. Turns out, when I was really little, Mary had actually been one to bite. That didn't surprise me, bitch. I remembered in a bit, and are lots of kids that do that. But then she went on to ask if I remembered the incident with the shovel. I told her no, honestly wondering what the hell she was talking about. About 5, Mary 3, she had found the spade of a broken metal shovel. Somewhere, probably in their garage. I'd been playing with Jill in the yard that day, and Mom was shocked when she heard me screaming in terror, especially because I was always a quiet kid. When she looked, she saw Mary chasing me around, trying to slam the shovel over my head. We didn't know it at the time, but I have blood pressure condition, which makes me get dehydrated extremely easily, and I was on the verge of losing consciousness. By the time I finally screamed for help, she also told me that only a couple months prior, she'd run into their mother at the store, where she'd informed my mom that Mary had been sent into a home for mentally ill children, and that when she had lived at home, she had kept a steel knife under her pillow in case Mary ever threatened her. Not sure why I didn't remember the shovel incident, be it because of my young age or trauma, but I do have vague memories of it now that my mom had told me. And now that I'm older, I'm less confused and more horrified as I think of all pets they had that died seemingly out of nowhere. I can remember at least 2 hamsters, 4 fish, a dog, and 6 cats. One of had 7 kittens, one of which survived to young adulthood. There were probably more, but I try not to think about them now. I'm in college on the other side of the state now, but every so often I'll see a post on social media from Jill. She never mentions her sister, but according to her mother, Mary still asks about me sometimes when I go to visit her. Sometimes when I'm at home, I'm afraid I'll look out the window and see her face. Despite my bedroom being on the 2nd floor, I flinch every time someone pretends to throw something or take a swing at me, and even hearing even joyful, playful screams makes my heart race. Very typical psychology major. So I hate to paint mentally ill people in a negative light, or make them out to be subhuman monsters meant to be feared. I know a lot of people who suffer with mental illness, and they are some of the kindest, gentlest people I know. But every so often there's one that breaks that pattern and lives up to all the ableist stereotypes you can think of. So former neighbor who probably caused my paranoia, let's not meet.